Reach high, aim high, and obtain. I have 1 1/4 cups here of warm water. About 105 to 110 degrees is what you're looking for. Basically, I made sure it was above body temperature and I knew I was good. To that, we are going to add our 100% pure organic maple syrup. We actually bought this and it's glass. I love the fact it's glass. From Costco. And we're going to do this into our warm water. 1, 2, into our warm water, and then take your tool, you're going to stir this so you're making almost like a maple syrup warmed water. Okay, and you can see that the water changed colors just a little bit there. That's what we're looking for. And then to that, we're going to add our active dry yeast, and I'll be doing a tablespoon of that. And then I'm going to give this a quick whisk. And then I'm going to set this to the side, let it wake up, and then we'll do next steps. Which is, these are actually bell peppers from our garden. And I know they look all white and stuff because I know they're looking a little like they've been in the freezer, because they have. Because this is actually bell peppers that we harvested from our garden. Some of them have already been chopped up a little bit, and then we put them into bags and we froze them, so that the produce that we worked so hard for during the spring and summer, we can actually enjoy during winter time without having to go out to the store and buy bell peppers. But if that's not an option, you would want to go to the store and get some bell peppers. But the main focus is you can either do just solid green bell peppers, which I've done. It's delicious. You can do solid red bell peppers. Delicious as well, because these are actually my favorite. But we end up having more success with our green bell peppers. So when we get these, I get really excited and I have to have them. Or you can do what I'm doing here, which is a combination of the two. But basically you want a good amount of peppers, specifically bell peppers. And what we're going to do is we're going to finely chop these all. And then we're also going to chop, and I'll work on this, we're also going to chop up an onion. Now, my parents love this purple onion because they say it's got a sweeter flavor for them. But you can do either this or a regular white onion. It doesn't matter. It's personal preference. You simply need a good, decent sized onion. And we're going to chop that up as well. So once I get this all chopped, I'll show you next steps. I have 1 pound of ground beef. I had the full red onion, but I needed more of a medium-sized onion because otherwise I'm gonna feel like I'm eating a ton of onion. So I put a good amount, minus this piece right there. You can see I put a good amount of onion in there because it needed to be more of a medium-sized onion. The rest I chopped up here, and then you can see our green and our red bell peppers. But again, you can do whatever mix. You can go just green, just red, or the combination of both and get a beautiful coloring to this dish, which is phenomenal. So what we're gonna do is we're going to go over to our cast iron skillet on the range, and we're going to saute our vegetables here before we add the ground beef, and then we're going to add in the herbs and have that all come together to make a fabulous dish, and it's going to be so delicious. So let's do next steps. This in my prep bowl here, I know that looks quite like there's a lot of red, but that's because of what the last ingredients are. But in here is 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons thyme, 2 teaspoons oregano, 2 teaspoons basil, 2 teaspoons parsley, 2 teaspoons garlic, teaspoon paprika, teaspoon chili powder. And that's all mixed in here together.
For the things that we grew, are they fresh or are they dehydrated?
They are dehydrated.
Okay,
So
good.
you can see here, but we reuse the containers that we originally had years ago before we started kind of more growing our own garden. But see, if I put the lid on like this, so you can actually see everything better. And that's another reason why I love having a prep bowl with a lid, is so I can shake all the herbs together and it whisks them without being overly separated. And you can see here, we have a really nice mix now of all those herbs together, because we're going to use this for next steps, and it's going to be so delicious. These things are so awesome. So we're going to turn on our stove, and then I'm going to get some butter, and you'll need probably about a couple tablespoons of this. To make this happen. But basically we're putting 1 tablespoon on, and we're going to be coating the bottom, because we want to make sure that we get everything on the bottom well lubricated with the butter before we start adding in our vegetables. Okay, so let's get that. Okay, we can see now we got that covered on the bottom. So now I'm going to add what we chopped earlier, which was our onions and our bell pepper and all these fabulous ingredients to the pan, because why? We're going to saute them and make this absolutely delicious. And the butter, it will give it this nice flavor that's going to be absolutely delicious. Okay, and then stir that around. And because the bell peppers were frozen, we're going to get a little bit of an icing release of smoke. That's okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I need some garlic to go with this. So I'm taking garlic and I'm taking off the peeling to put into my garlic press here, because this is going to give it some phenomenal flavor. And I'm purposely doing pretty large garlics here. If you've watched the channel or any of my other, you know we're big fans of garlic in this family. And so we're going to add our garlic. There we go. Okay. This is, I don't necessarily need to peel it to have this press work, but when the garlic is that big, I've learned it's best to take the peeling off or it doesn't really come out. Let's do our next one. And what I love is you can then put the end in and push, and it peels, so you're not having to stop and do a whole rinse production of the garlic. Okay, there's 2.
Oh, God, nice size, aren't they?
They're what?
Nice size garlic.
Oh, yeah. But like I said, we really like garlic. Garlic sauce, lamb with garlic sauce. I mean, you know, it's just good stuff. And it really imparts some great flavor, especially when it's cooked. There we go. Now let's saute that some more. So now we're going to saute everything. So you can see the water that's coming out from the bell peppers as well as the onions. But because we put down the butter first, that's what's preventing everything from sticking, is because we made sure we put that little bit in there before we started the whole process. And that's how come I could safely here on the side, because my heat was only at medium, I could easily, you know, take care of the garlic add while the temperature was addressed in regards to the bell peppers, because they were still quite cold, to be frank, because they were fresh from the freezer. You can see just how beautifully colorful this is, isn't it?
Yep, gorgeous.
Just wonderful. And we want to get this well sauteed with the onions and everything. And we're almost there. And then we'll add our ground beef. So you'll see a little bit more here.
Look at those colors.
I know, this is so good. And that's why I said, because I've done it with just the green bell peppers, it was still delicious. But like I said, I love red bell peppers. But if I can have a combination of both, I think the flavor comes out more, and it's just delicious in my opinion. So now we're going to add our ground beef and get that started cooking. And the ground beef, it's a pound. And just do our best to kind of chop that up. And then while that's going on, I want to also add my herbs here to flavor our dish. And we're going to do a little bit more butter, but we're going to wait just a little bit on that meat, because I'm going to get the meat a little bit more chopped up before I add that little remainder butter. And you'll find that once you've done all this, it doesn't even really look like you've added butter to it, but the butter really adds that flavor. And especially because it's our homemade butter, I think it imparts more with our dishes because it is homemade than I think you would get from just store-bought, in my opinion. Okay, now I definitely need to add. Get that under in the center where it's the hottest too, because I want to make sure everything stays lubricated well. Just get this all chopped up really well together, and you'll see how the flavors just come together. And you want to cook this until all the meat is brown. And you can see there's still quite a bit of bread in there. But we want to get it really browned and have all those flavors come together. Oh, can you smell that, Mom?
That's delicious, Dad.
You can see the meat was quite together. That's why it's so important to break it apart. So you can see, look at the collar. And we can smell right now, and I'm sure if you make this dish, you will certainly smell how delicious the flavors are to the nose. And this is before we've assembled everything together too, which is just wonderful.
That's such an experience. You have the colors, you have the texture, you have...
You have what?
The colors, the texture, the pleasure of the eyes, and the aroma. And that is so...
And then the last thing we'll use is cheese, because let's be frank, cheese helps top a lot of things delicious. Cheese makes it all delicious, right? It's the final piece of the puzzle, right? Oh, see how just everything, see the juices?
When we were in college, we had a ladies' club.
Oh, I remember you told me that
And
story.
one of the gals there, her name was Jody Clark, and she gave a speech on how cheese covers all mistakes and makes everything taste good. And I declare, every one of us, the men, the ladies, all of us were just rolling laughing because she did it so well.
Yeah. Kind of like how Dad says corn chili salsa fixes everything.
That's true.
That's what Dad says. And so far I've yet to see it not be true, but I don't tend to do that approach simply because I don't like the sugar personally and the corn chili salsa.
That's just a good story. And some
But
people
yeah.
do.
Oh yeah. But I think, sometimes I'm a cheese person, to be frank. I am. I love my cheeses and my dairies, and as you know, if you've watched my yogurt video, the heavy cream. But you know what? If you're balancing good food choices and taking a good approach in regards to, when I was growing up, the phrase was diet and exercise, then it shouldn't be a problem. But I know some people have office jobs that I myself do at times, and it means you're sitting a little bit more, so you've got to make sure you keep it down.
You get your videos out, right?
Yeah, I have to post these, so I have to sit down and do it. It takes a while to edit. I think I spent more time editing than I do actually us doing this whole prep and cooking and other stuff. Okay, now you see how it's kind of like a little bit of moisture now is actually what we're removing now, because we don't want to have like a overly soggy shell. So we're just more or less at this point making sure the excess water is leaving, but we still have the lubrication to prevent things from sticking that was from the butter. That's the important thing. And you can also see it's also from the meat, because obviously meat has naturally just a little bit of fat and water in it. So it's both that we're working with now. But you just give it a little bit of time and that will reduce. And then you'll want to turn off the eye and let it cool down. And then this is going to be so delicious. I cannot stress how delicious this was. And the thing was, each one I found was filling enough for one person. So you can make a whole bunch of these.
You only wanted one.
Yeah, you only wanted one. It was so freaking good. And I know we all loved it. So good. So I said, I've got to share this with my audience and my subscribers because it was just so good, huh?
It was perfect.
Just making sure I'm getting that ground beef really pressed down and that the herbs are all well incorporated. Oh, lovely the smell though. Can I see? My mouth is watering because I know it's good. Now the other thing you do need to do is you're going to need to preheat your oven, or I should say you're going to need to start heating your oven to 425 minutes. Because while this is cooling after you turn off your eye, it gives it time for you to start assembling everything, so that by the time everything is assembled, your oven is already at the needed temperature, so you can do a quick turnaround cooking and have your dish done.
Is that it?
I think it's looking dry enough, don't you?
Yeah, it's good enough.
Okay, so let's turn it off. Okay, and now we'll let this cool down. We'll put our oven to do the 425 degrees Fahrenheit temperature, and then we will start next steps. In here I have my almond flour, 1 cup, 1 teaspoon, and I used pink Himalayan salt, but it's any quality salt. And then to that I'm going to add 1 cup of arrowroot flour. Get that shook out. And then 1/3 of a cup of coconut flour. And then we're going to whisk this all together. And this is going to make our dry ingredients portion that we need to do everything else. And it doesn't take long. You just want to get everything well incorporated. But I have found this particular approach is a really good base for a whole bunch of different ingredients that and recipes that now that I'm sharing it. I think you guys will enjoy it too, but it's so delicious. Okay. So we have all that well incorporated now. Over here, I have 1.5 tablespoons of chia seeds, and these are organic chia seeds. I have 1 tablespoon organic Psyllium Husk Powder, and then this white stuff is actually, it's powdered xylitol sugar from a Birch Tree, and it's organic as well. It's just over time where I took the sugar and I made it powdered sugar. It's gotten a little bit hard, so I need to pulverize it too. But we're going to take all of this, put it in my little food processor here for my Bamix. Okay. We're going to pulverize all this together. And the great thing is when you grind up chia seeds, it becomes more of a protein than it does a hydrator. Because if you leave it whole, you can add it to liquids and it'll actually hydrate itself and help hydrate one's body. So we'll pulverize this real quick. Okay, that should do it. There we go. And then what we're going to do is open this up. And then we're going to shake that off into our water over here, because that's where it's ultimately going to be. And you can see our yeast has been waking up fabulously. And I need to take my whisk now into this fabulous yeast water. You can see how it's got some bubbles going on there. We are going to add all this dry ingredients. And what will happen is we will whisk this together. And when we whisk this and let it sit for about 10 minutes, it will be with a gel-like consistency. So because of the maple syrup that was in the water with the yeast, it caused to help it wake up, and the yeast started being facilitated by the bit of sugar in the maple syrup. But the reason I'm adding the xylitol is it gives it just a little bit of a sweetness to the dough that you find in a traditional recipe, but it still keeps it so it's not overly, it's kind of, it's very subtle. And that's how come I only did 1 tablespoon, because it doesn't take much and it gives it just a sweet undertone, but it's not overpowering. And that way too, because it's birch xylitol, it actually will help with oral care, because as a lot of people know from research, that xylitol, especially from the birch tree, actually prevents a lot of oral issues. And so that's one reason why I use it here, so it's a little bit more facilitating what I want, because I want it to be a little bit sweeter than the maple syrup, but not overly sweet, and that's what we're getting with this. So we'll let this sit for a few minutes, like I said, about 10, and you can see it's already becoming very gel-like, and that's what we're looking for. So let us let it to do its thing. You can see our beautiful, wonderful gel going on there, and it is beautiful. I'm going to get my silicone spatula to help me get everything out. Oh, hear that air? Just usually have a little bit that tends to stick to my glass container, but that's okay. Okay. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to quickly wet my hands to make this job easier, and I'm using some filtered water because this will make the job so much easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the flour, or I should say the dry ingredients, because this is a traditional flour, and we're going to basically knead it into the gel. Now you may be saying, how are you doing that? Well, that's because this is going to make the, well, it's similar to a tortilla shell, except it's got the texture and thickness similar to a pita. And it's going to help bring all the ingredients of our dish together. And I know this will take just a little bit of time to knead, and feel free to grab it and flip it as needed. And you'll notice that as you bring the ingredients together, it'll get denser. And that is a good thing for what we're doing. I'm just basically scooping and adding.
And I know I'm looking forward to lunch.
Well, it's because this was a recipe I tried just a little bit ago. What was it, a week or a few days? I want to say it's been maybe a week. But I tried this and I put this all together and we all just fell in love with it. And I was like, I should have videoed that and shared it with you guys once it was finished. But I was trying to surprise my parents. And it doesn't work to try and make a recipe surprise for somebody if they filmed it. So that's the only reason why I didn't upload this video sooner, is because it just doesn't work to try and surprise somebody with food and then film for you.
Oh, how nice was that?
Yes, and we all loved it. It was so delicious. It was flavorful, and it was, oh, I loved it. But this is almost like, it's not overly sweet because I didn't put, I mean, you saw how much, and you know how much if you've watched the video that I put into it. It's not a lot of sweetener, but just that little hair of the tablespoon of xylitol makes that difference and make it more of like a sweetbread, but it's not so sweet that I feel like I'm, you know, it's a dessert or something. I feel like it's just an enhancement to the dish.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, it's an enhancement and a pleasure in the dish. Okay, so now you can see it did take just a little bit, but you can see how well that came together, right? I mean, look at that. We got ourselves a beautiful ball now of dough. Now what we're going to do with this is we're actually going to roll this out on our surface here for next steps. So I'm bringing out my trusty friend Arrowroot for next steps here, as well as my fave, which is the marble rolling pin that Dad bought Mom years ago to make these next steps happen. Because with the weight of the marble on the rolling pin, it just makes this so much quicker and faster than you would have under normal circumstances. Okay, so I'll press that, and then I'm going to put just a little bit of arrowroot on the top here, and that's so this doesn't stick. It'll make it a lot easier because it doesn't necessarily stick well to the rolling pin with the arrowroot and flour, because it's not like a traditional wooden roller. We're going to roll this as thin as we can while maintaining the connection of the dough with everything. And it'll take it a bit to be coaxed out, and you'll end up rolling it a few times as we do our cutting, but that's okay. Let me add some more arrowroot because it's starting to stick just a little bit there. And then we'll need to get out my cheesecloth so that we can make sure everything stays nice and moist. Let's see, we're getting a good amount of dough out of this, huh? You wouldn't think that with as much ingredients we had, right? Wasn't that much, but it makes a difference. You basically want to get it as thin as you can. Okay. Okay. Put that back in there. I think there I've gone as thin as I can right there. Let me actually fold that over just a hair. Incorporate it back into the dough. me. I have what's called, it's an empanada press, so you can basically put your dough in here, you put your filling in, and then you close it, and it seals it. But we're going to be using it to facilitate the almost closing of our shells. And first I'm going to begin by cutting. And so that's what the bottom is that, and this is stainless steel, by the way. I made sure I got one that was stainless steel. But basically you press down and it perfectly cuts these circles. I love this thing. And you can see about how thick I got it there. It's not too big, not too thin. And then I can put this then in here. And then we'll step over to the stove and I'll show you next steps. So I took my cutting board, I purposely put it on top of the range, yes, of the stove. And that is so that I can easily come from over here where our meat and our vegetables have cooled down to put them in here and prevent myself from making a mess all over over the top. So you just need to take a little bit of a spoonful, and I try and always put it on the one side. You don't need much. Now if you wanted to close it and make more of a traditional empanada, you could just put less stuffing in the middle, but I like it stuffed and I like it more in a pita form. So that's how come I'm doing it this way. Then I'm using the Organic Valley 3 cheese Mexican cheese. I'm just gonna put that on top. Who doesn't like cheese, right? And then I just take this and I just press it enough so that you can see it's not fully closing. Let me rotate that. It's not fully closing, but it makes the shell hold the shape. And then I can lift it up and see that it's now holding the shape of that closure. And then I'm just going to carefully take it up, and then I'm going to place this on, this is a, obviously, stainless steel cooking pan, but it came with this grid so that when the heat comes out of the oven, it can get fully around the shell and really cook the dough. Because otherwise this is going to be too doughy if you put it directly flat, because then it's not getting the heat on the underneath. So make sure that you do that important step to get a fully cooked shell going on here. But this is a keto shell, so people that tend to be, or people that are potentially migraineurs, minus the xylitol, because if they've gone through their few weeks of avoiding all sugars, then they could safely do something like this, because there is a lot of salt in the cheese, salt in the spices in the vegetables, and then we had salt in the bread. And so that way it's not too much of a concern. So I do want to caveat that. So let's do our next bit of shells and then we'll cook these. So let's do our next one. I'm trying to make sure I can get it as close to where the other one was, because it'll reduce how much dough loss and how much extra I may have to do to roll it out again. Okay, now this one was just a little bit doughy on the one side, so just for safety, I'm gonna put a little bit of arrowroot on it, because I don't wanna have to worry about it too much. put more arrowroot on your hands and kind of work it on the dough just to prevent it from sticking and prevent stickage happening. But other than that, we'll just add our meat. And doing this recipe, I usually end up using a full bag of this cheese. So don't feel like, oh my goodness, is there enough? Usually one bag will do it with this, and you don't need much. But I will caveat that if you like more cheese, you will want to add or get additional bags of cheese. There. And now realize the thinner that you make the dough, the faster it will also cook. So do be cognizant of that when you're doing this particular recipe, is how thin did you make your crust and your shells, because then you will need to adjust your timing appropriately. But it will be so worth it because these things are so good. But they'll also inflate a little bit in the stove, and it'll be so good. I finished making them all. See, we got quite a few going on here. And I actually have one extra going on, you know, my little baby one. But we're going to put this now in the oven. And we're going to cook these for 15 minutes at 425. And then we'll be done. Our timer is going off. So let's turn off our timer. We'll bring out our delicious, isn't that beautiful?
Look at that. Oh, that's so beautiful.
And they're delicious too. Okay.
Oh, I tell you, it looks good. Baby, that is good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Huh?